a detour into something a bit scary. But music always calms me, so I am going to start. I want to talk to you briefly about how nothing is impossible with God. Things that seem impossible to us, nothing is impossible with Him. And as women, there are many times in our lives that we face things, quietly or vocally, that we don't know how in the world we're going to make it through. But nothing is impossible with Him. Nothing is impossible when you put your trust in God. Nothing is impossible when you're trusting in His word. Hearken to the voice of God to thee. Is there anything too hard for me? Then put your trust in God alone and rest upon His word. For everything, oh everything, yes, everything is possible with God. Growing up, my grandmother sang that. Fortunately, I grew up with very strong women in my life, always active in church. My grandmother, mother, my aunts, the people in my home church. Then when I started courting Jimmy and started coming here, many of you and many that are gone, but I'm very appreciative. And the preacher's been preaching on the Beatitudes. And my grandmother, as all of us grandchildren were at her house in the summertime, she preached those to us constantly. She was constantly on us about the Beatitudes. So I'm really enjoying that, Pastor. But I'd like to share some scripture with you, because some more scripture that Grandma pounded into us was Romans 8:26 to 39. Likewise, the Spirit also helpeth our infirmities. For we know not what we should pray for as we ought, but the Spirit itself maketh intercession for us with groanings which cannot be uttered. And he that searcheth the hearts knoweth what is the mind of the Spirit, because he maketh intercession for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that all things work together for good to them that love God, to them who are called according to his purpose. For whom he did foreknow, he also did predestinate to be conformed to the image of his Son, that he might be the firstborn among many brethren. Moreover, whom he did predestinate, them he also called. And whom he called, them he also justified. And whom he justified, them he also glorified. What shall we then say to these things? If God be for us, who could be against us? He that spared not his own Son, but delivered him up for us all, how shall he not with him also freely give us all things? Who shall lay anything to the charge of God's elect? It is God that justifieth. Who is he that condemneth? It is Christ that died, yea rather, that is risen again, who is even at the right hand of God, who also maketh intercession for us. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation, or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? As it is written, for thy sake we are killed all the day long. We are accounted as sheep for the slaughter. Nay, in all these things we are more than conquerors through him that loved us. For I am persuaded that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor powers, nor things present, nor things to come, nor height, nor depth, nor any other creature shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. And again, I mentioned I had very strong women in my life. And I know growing up, my mother and grandmother and all the women, I was taught to pray and about everything. And I mean, some of us, we used to laugh. We're like, why are we praying about that? I had birds, and I've shared some of these stories with women before. But grew up having parakeets and cockatiels and birds. And we would hang them outside in the cages on the porch. Well, sometimes they would get away. Well, you think you're never going to see that bird again. Well, what do? We go outside, we hold the cage, and we pray. We pray, Lord, please bring Caracula back. We named Caracula for para and cure from Dracula because he got the blood out of him. But we did pray for him back, and he came back. And every bird I've ever had that got loose has always come back. And other pets, and some of you have experienced things of that nature. But a couple of other personal things, not going to elaborate much, but just simply going out and getting the car started, trying to get to church or get somewhere the car won't start. Well, what did Mama do? She sat there and held the steering wheel, prayed, or sometimes lifted the lid and prayed over the motor. I mean, we prayed about everything. Needing groceries. My daddy was sentenced to serve time in prison. And there was a period of time that we didn't have food we needed. Well, Mom didn't tell anybody. She told nobody. And next thing you know, there's a knock on the door, and here's some of the deacons from the church with grocery bags. I mean, and we prayed over everything that taught me to pray. And as a child growing up, you don't understand that, but I'm so appreciative. I am so appreciative that I was taught the Word of God and how to pray and talk with Him, because a lot of people think of prayer as being talking to God, but He talks back. You just have to listen. But just a couple of other personal things for me that seem like impossibilities, and some of you sitting in here have experienced some similar things. I buried my first child. She was stillborn. That was absolute impossible thing to think that you think you can't make it. And so one day, Jimmy had gone back to Fort Campbell. Mom had gone back to work. Dawn had gone to school. Everybody was back to normal. I'm sitting there screaming out, "Why, Lord?" I spent a lot of time flat on my back in my mom's bed. But I was playing the piano one day, playing the Old Ruby Cross. And I did not hear the audible voice of God, but I felt a wash over my spirit that day. And it had been about 2 weeks since she was born. And I felt in my spirit, there's a part of you and Jimmy Bryant in my presence right now. What is your problem? And it was different for me every day after that. Did it hurt? Does it hurt? Yes. But it was different. Then another, so I'm going to speak to you about a few birth things. I had to take fertility treatments to get Lindsay. I mean, we didn't think we'd ever get pregnant. And took fertility treatments to get her. And when she was born, the whole long process of that, they thought they broke her neck when she came out. And what did I do? Just like I did laying on the floor. The only thing I knew to do, you can hear me on our video, I started screaming out to the only one that I knew could fix that situation. And I screamed with everything in me, "Lord, I can't bear another one. Lord, please let it be me." And all of a sudden, come to find out it wasn't her, they had broke my tailbone. I personally think a miracle was performed that day, but and then, a couple of years later, having some health issues, some really bad health issues, and a cancer diagnosis that, thank the Lord, was wrong. I found out that I was almost 5 months pregnant with Colt, and had decided I was never going through anything like birth again, but God had other plans. But those are just some of my own personal struggles with being a mother and becoming a mother. And as I look around the room, I know we've got people sitting in here that have been through some of the same stuff. You've given birth to babies that had to be transported away that you didn't know if you'd see again. NICU, going through fertility treatments. There are other issues, divorce, sickness, loss of loved ones. It's just unbearable things that we think we can't bear. But God always comes through. And according to the world standards, I'm just stupid enough to believe that if I pray to an all-knowing God, that He is going to come through for me according to His will. And we might not understand it at the time, but we see later, as I have. I've seen why I had to go through things that I've gone through. And many of you have too. If you haven't, hold on, because He'll reveal it to you in time. But another lady that I want to talk to you about, we don't take up offerings or anything like that, but another lady is Cornelia, Arnalda, Johanna, well, we know her as Corey Ten Boom. She was born in Haarlem, Netherlands. She died in Santa Ana, California, actually on her 91st birthday. She was a Dutch watchmaker. Her and her family had a watch shop and lived above it in the Netherlands, and she was a Holocaust survivor. And her sister were older when they were taken. And another important thing, I would throw this in here for being a woman, she was the first female in the Netherlands to receive certification to make do watches, whatever you call it, I guess, be a watchmaker. But anyway, so her and her sister were older when they were taken, but there's many things that I could talk about for 10 minutes, but two of the things about her that I find so intriguing is she is a woman of prayer. She believed in prayer. But one of the stories is her and her sister were standing in line, and she began to pray when they were taken. She had a Bible, but she was trying to sneak in. And she knew when they patted them down and all, they would find that Bible. So she did what she knew to do, and that was pray. And she prayed, Lord, make me invisible. Just don't even let them see me. Just help me get through. I've got to get this Bible in, Lord. We need your word. And so they're going through in her book, The Hiding Place. And I actually watched the movie last night. It shows how they start to pat them down, and then there's some stuff that happens. She goes right on by. They call, I think, her sister's name, and then she just goes right on by, and she gets that Bible in, and she's got to find a place to hide it, and the Lord provides that as well. He provides a place to hide His word. Her and her sister and several of them, knowing that they had it hidden in their heart, but they needed to share it with those that had not read the word. So through prayer, and they prayed constantly and taught others to pray. And if you read her books, I love reading her books, but that's a constant with her is pray. Just ask the Father, just pray to Him, and He'll help. But we do all have so many personal stories, and many times in our lives, like I said previously, we share things, we don't share things, but His word, again, like I read, was, He hears the utterances of our spirit when we don't even know the words to say. If we don't know how to talk to somebody about what we need prayer for, He knows, He understands. And so I found a funny little story I thought I would share with you before we close. A grandfather was walking through the yard when he heard his granddaughter repeating the alphabet in a tone of voice that sounded like a prayer. He asked her what she was doing. The little girl explained, I'm praying, but I can't think of exactly the right words. So I'm just saying all the letters, and God will put them together for me because He knows what I'm thinking. And how many times